Hi everybody, this is Tom, and in this second preview video I'll be covering how to contribute to EasyBlend. Hopefully you've already watched our main introduction video, as this one will probably make a lot more sense if you have. But even if you've just checked out the site and want to get involved, then you've come to the right place. The quality of the resources we index and the effectiveness of our system depends on user contributions, so we've tried our best to make this as easy as possible for our users. In this video, we'll take a deeper look at EasyBlend's interactive pipeline, which allows every user to contribute. I'll walk you through some real examples of using this pipeline where we'll actually add and modify some resources. Hopefully you'll find the process easy, fast, and maybe even fun. Okay, so what are some of the ways to contribute to EasyBlend? Well, every user can submit new Blender resources for addition to the EasyBlend database. And along with the resource itself, the user can submit appropriate metadata for that resource. And you'll hear us refer to both this process and/or metadata itself as a resource classification. Classification simply allows users to locate Blender-related resources in a more intuitive way. Along with adding new resources, users can also change the metadata to existing resources from time to time, which we just call reclassifying them. And if a resource, be it a tutorial, demo, or other material, doesn't quite feel like it belongs due to either being poor quality or inappropriate for some reason, a user can flag that resource to be removed from the database. Now, of course, a checks and balances system is needed to maintain the integrity of the data. This is where Blendukators fit into the picture. As I mentioned in the first video, EasyBlend is centered around Blendukators, and as such, they are given special privileges. One of these is that only Blendukators can make permanent changes to the system. Blendukators are able to review user submissions and accept or reject these submissions so that they are written to the database. Of course, you must have a user account to contribute, but I know most of you will want to see a real example of contributing within the EasyBlend system first. I'll defer discussing user accounts, specifically Blenducator accounts for now, but we will come back to them. So let's jump in and see the EasyBlend pipeline in action. In the search view, let's say I'm browsing through videos on the site, and I come across modifiers, start drilling down into it, and maybe I click on Hook Modifier and notice that nothing shows up on the right. And I'm like, what? Gotta have a tutorial on the Hook Modifier. I'll be the first to add one. I've already created a standard user account, and now I'll go ahead and log in using my username and password. Once logged into the system, some new options become available to the user. One of the options I now have is located under this Contribute menu option right here. The Add Resource link brings up a screen which will take us step by step through the process of adding the new tutorial to EasyBlend. And before we make our first contribution, let's quickly check out our user account stats. I'll come up here to User on the menu bar and then select User Stats. As you might guess, this brings up a view where we can check out our stats and submission history. Right now, we see a bunch of zeros. These stats reflect an empty history. Of course, because we haven't contributed anything yet, but we'll change this soon. Back in the Add New Resource view, we can see that currently you can drop a link from YouTube, Vimeo, or Dailymotion into this box. So let's head over to YouTube to find a good tutorial that we can add to EasyBlend. I have YouTube opened in a new tab, and I'll do a quick search for Blender Hook Modifier. And I get several items back. Okay, this first one looks good. Let's check it out. Assume we watch some portion of this tutorial and verify that it's of reasonable quality. And this is key. EasyBlend sets a very simple standard for the caliber of resource that we want to see in EasyBlend's database. Each Blender resource should be of reasonable quality and add to the user's experience. We do not want poor quality or trivial Blender resources in the system. We'll see that as with everything that makes it into our database, Blendukators are ultimately responsible for making this decision. So now I'm simply going to copy the URL of the tutorial and come back to EasyBlend, where I will just drop the link into the text box here and hit validate. What happens at this point is EasyBlend first verifies that the link is indeed a legitimate YouTube video. Then it checks to see if this video is already in our system. In this case, it's not, so we are now given the opportunity to add the tutorial. Let's go ahead and do this. We can now see that step 2 is to classify this resource. Notice that step 2 is technically optional. However, let me just say that taking the time to review the video and enter relevant attributes here will be super helpful to the Blenducator who will eventually review this resource. Okay, so I'll click here, and once the form opens up, I have some very simple choices to make regarding the metadata I want to include with the resource. The first thing I want to identify is the type or category of this resource. I spent some time in the first introduction video defining EasyBlend's categories, so you can review that section for reference if needed, but for the most part these categories are pretty self-explanatory. So I think this resource has a fairly narrow focus on the hook modifier. It definitely doesn't seem to cover several unrelated topics, as is the case with a general tutorial. It seems to fall more into the specific tutorial category. But it is also relatively short and to the point, and remember, quick tips fall into the same topic hierarchy as do specific tutorials. Anyway, I'm not going to overthink this here and just say that the tutorial is focused on the hook modifier and it covers it in a fair amount of depth, probably a bit more than a quick tip should. So I'll select specific tutorials and leave it at that. You'll notice when I select specific tutorials, the topic hierarchy we are already used to for searching specific tutorials shows up to the left. Now, instead of searching for resources using this hierarchy, my second task is to place this tutorial into the topic hierarchy where others can easily find it. Now I could simply navigate back to hook modifier and place it right here where we saw no associated resources before. But I'm sure some of you may be wondering, what if the topic where I think it should be classified under doesn't exist in the hierarchy yet? Well, in the first video, we discussed how a community-driven Blender taxonomy is the main feature around which EasyBlend organizes its resources. So like all of the other metadata, users can submit new topics under existing ones as part of their classification. If your topic suggestion is a reasonable one, the Blenducator reviewing your submission will likely accept it, and this new subtopic will become a permanent fixture in the EasyBlend topic hierarchies. So to illustrate this, let me check this box, then add the new subtopic Intro to Hook Modifier right here. As that kind of makes sense for this tutorial because it is an introduction and doesn't cover some deeper application or advanced use of the hook modifier. Great. We've now placed the new tutorial onto a conceptual shelf where other Blender users will be able to find it in an intuitive way without having to type in any keywords. Okay, so if you only choose a category and a topic for your new resource, this by itself is a great start. But it only takes a few more seconds to also add the language, skill level of the intended audience, and the Blender version used in the tutorial if applicable. Keep in mind that in the long term we may add many additional metadata fields, but they basically should all work the same way. So for this particular tutorial, the narration language is English. The skill level I'm going to say is intermediate. And of course this is subjective. Although this is an introduction to the hook modifier, the author covers several subtopics which a Blender newbie probably wouldn't be familiar with. And the Blender version he uses here in this tutorial is 2.70, so I'll just select that here. Alright, I'm comfortable with my choices, and I'll just hit Submit, which is going to place my submission onto the user submissions queue within EasyBlend's pipeline. Cool, so we've found a new resource, we've validated the resource against the database, we've classified it, and then submitted it. Now our job is done, and it's up to the Blenducators to review our submission and either accept it or reject it. I can now go back to my user stats and see the submission, along with my entire submission history if I had anything else. Notice that the submission has a pending status. This means that it's in the queue awaiting review. So an important thing I'll mention here is that EasyBlend will do its best to record each user submission, and also make sure user history stays intact, that those who submit classifications are credited with those contributions for the life of the account. Your submissions will eventually go towards a user reputation within EasyBlend, which might eventually unlock additional privileges within the site. Currently this feature is in development, but will probably have many core implications towards future features. So we've found a new resource, we've validated the resource against the database, we've classified it, and then submitted it. Now our job is done, and it's up to the Blenducators to review our submission and either accept it or reject it. Alright, our resource has been submitted. Now what happens? To see the next part of the pipeline in action, I'm going to switch roles and log in with a Blenducator account which I have also created. As a Blenducator, maybe I'm also in the mood to contribute today, so I decide I'll review a user submission. As before, once logged in, I'll navigate up to the Contribute section of the menu. As a Blenducator, I have additional options available to me. This time I'll choose Review Resource. EasyBlend now looks to see if there are any user submissions in the queue which are available for review. If so, the database returns the user submission, and immediately we can see the resource along with the user classification metadata. I can preview the tutorial right here, and if I like it, I can accept the task of reviewing it. If I don't care for this resource, I can simply refresh the view and EasyBlend will give me a new one to look at, and the first one would just be placed back in the queue. In this case, I'll simply accept the review task. Upon accepting the task, I'll now have some time period to complete the review. If I fail to complete the review within the time allotted, the user submission simply just goes back on the stack. Currently, this period is 24 hours, but this may change depending on user feedback. The reason we allot a relatively short period is to keep the pipeline flowing. Users are taking their time to submit new resources and classifications, and we want to provide a quick turnover for this process. So step 1 is simply accepting a resource for review. We've done that, now on to step 2. There's nothing complicated here, we just look at the user classification summary and decide whether or not we agree with it. At this point, we try to make an assessment of the resource and its classification. A Blenducator should sufficiently familiarize themselves with the resource to be able to tell if the submitting user's choices make reasonable sense. If we don't like the quality of the resource, we can reject it and that classification is discarded. It could be resubmitted at a later time, but for now the submission is effectively vaporized. On the other hand, if the resource appears decent and maybe we just don't agree with the user's categorization or other metadata, we can proceed with optional step 2 and change the metadata in the classification. Maybe we see that the submitting user left a field blank and we know the answer. We can go into the edit form and add that field. Anyways, let's assume we've watched a representative portion of this tutorial and determine that it's a good one. Furthermore, we agree that the metadata submitted by the user, including the new topic Intro to Hook modifier, is worthy of addition to EasyBlend. Once done, we can close out of the form, and if we're satisfied, click on Accept and the resource is now in the EasyBlend database. It's that simple. You can see that this whole process can be accomplished in minutes with minimal bottlenecks in the pipeline. Very cool. As a standard user, we've added our first resource, and as a Blenducator, we've reviewed and accepted a new resource. To verify the success, I can now go back to the search view and locate the tutorial. The resource should now show up under the proper category and topic, and if we seek it out, then click on Details here, we should be able to see the submitter and reviewer for the resource. On resource classifications, credit is always given to both individuals as a team effort. For good measure, I'll log back into my standard account and go back to user stats. Now I can see that my stats have been updated to include one addition, and the submission status for the tutorial is complete, as indicated by the green check mark. Cool. It's easy to add stuff, but what if I'm looking through resources and I come across one that I want to change? Maybe one of these resources hasn't been properly classified yet. Or maybe I just think I know better than the last guy and I just want to modify the existing classification. The process is very similar to the one we just walked through with adding the new resource. Whenever you're logged in under your account, an edit icon will show up next to every resource that is available for modification. Clicking on this icon brings up the exact same form we used a few moments ago to classify the new resource. This time, we can use it to modify the metadata for this existing resource. Once done, we submit it the same way, and a Blenducator will review it in exactly the same way. The only difference is under your account history, the classification will be recorded as a modification rather than an addition. Similarly, you can flag a resource for deletion. This is done again by entering the resource's edit form and coming down to the little red flag and clicking on it. You will be prompted to choose a reason describing why you feel the resource should be removed. Once submitted, it works just like any other user submission and will await review by a Blenducator. If a Blenducator accepts the deletion, the resource is not permanently deleted from the database, but rather placed onto a blacklist. Items in this blacklist are reviewed by staff, and if our staff members agree, the item is prevented from being resubmitted again. So hopefully now you have an understanding of how EasyBlend's resource pipeline works, and also have a sense of just how easy and fast resources can be added and modified. Alright, now let's go back and discuss user accounts briefly. Everyone, including those who wish to apply for Blenducator status, must start out by creating a standard user account. Creating a standard user account takes just a few minutes and only requires an email address where we can send you a confirmation link. Obtaining a Blenducator account involves one additional step, submitting a ridiculously easy application. The only real requirement at this point is that you've contributed to the Blender community in a relevant and verifiable way. What does this mean? Well, it basically means in a Blenducator, we are looking for the person who has made a solid effort to advancing Blender in some way or teaching it to others, and currently has a public-facing way to contact himself or herself at the website or blog where that work is hosted. Now, a solid contribution could be as simple as one good tutorial, or it might be a Python add-on for Blender that you created. It just has to be non-trivial. Why the public-facing contact link? Because EasyBlend staff will take a quick look at the applicant's work and channel or website, and then sends that applicant a confirmation token if approved. This is how we know we're sending the token to the right person, the one who actually made the contributions. So once you have a standard user account, make sure you're logged in, then go to the menu bar and under User choose Request Blenducator Account. An application should pop up which has just 4 items on it. The first item is your name as you would want it to appear as a Blenducator. It doesn't have to be your real name, but you'll want it to be such that we can associate you with your work, your public handle, so to speak. If there are multiple Blenducators represented at a single website or blog with only a single public contact point, as is often the case with a YouTube channel, we will be able to differentiate your work and will address the Blenducator confirmation token to this name you provide. The second thing we need is a link to your public web page where we can find a sample of your work. Again, this work could be a tutorial, discussion, or podcast, basically anything you feel is a contribution to Blender in some way. It's okay if you are a for-profit business or consultant. Samples of your work can be an intro to one of your paid courses or an article available to the public on your website. Then, we also need a URL to the page where we can find your public contact link. It should be located at the same website where a sample of your work is hosted. And lastly, we ask for the actual contact link itself. Now you can either enter an email address that matches one on your contact page, or you can leave it blank. If you enter an email address, we must be able to find that same email on your contact page, and it does not have to be the same one you use to log in with at EasyBlend. However, many websites have a contact page with a form which automatically emails the site or content owner without exposing their actual email address, mainly to prevent spam. If you leave the email field blank, EasyBlend staff will assume there is a contact form somewhere on the page at the public URL you give us. Hopefully this makes sense, but it's pretty basic. Just fill out these 4 fields and then submit the app. You'll be put into the queue and hopefully send a confirmation token within a day or so. Once you receive the token, go back once again to User on the menu and this time click on Confirm Blenducator Account. Here, you'll be asked to log in again using both your password and the Blenducator token. If successful, you'll have activated Blenducator status on your account. Again, initially it may take some time to get to everybody interested, so please be patient as we will make a diligent effort to get to all of your applications. One more thing regarding Blenducator accounts. I've mentioned that all Blenducators receive free promotion to their websites or blogs. Blenducator marquees, which consist of artwork along with a user link, are always shown up in this marquee area at the top of each page. I think many Blenducators will want to take advantage of this, so let's discuss this quickly now. One key note is that you do not need to actually contribute to EasyBlend in terms of adding new resources or reviewing user submissions. You only need an account with Blenducator status. To demonstrate how to activate Blenducator marquees, I'll log into a Blenducator account I have and come up to User, then Account Info. Now if I had an existing Blenducator marquee, it would show up top here, but in this case I haven't set one up yet. I'll click on this button, Blenducator Marquee, and a form will open up with a couple items. The first thing I'll do is select the artwork for my background image. Now each of these items must be a certain size, and these sizes may change in the future, but we'll post the required dimensions in this area. Once I've selected the image, it is automatically uploaded to our server where I can preview it up at the top. Next I'll select an image for my link. Again, it's automatically uploaded. Then, over at the right, I'll enter a link URL for my website here. Finally, if you want to have a tooltip which appears when users hover over your link, you can enter it right here. Then just hit Update, and after a few seconds, we should be able to preview the Blenducator marquee up at the top. Your marquee will be placed in line for review by EasyBlend staff. If staff approves your marquee, it will go into the ad rotation and will be seen by all of our visitors. The approval of your artwork and links is subjective to EasyBlend guidelines for tastefulness and relevance. If your marquee is rejected, just modify it and resubmit. I want to make a final point that contributing to EasyBlend comes with some expectation of responsibility from our users, especially on the part of Blenducators. Blenducators are expected to do their due diligence when reviewing a resource, as they are the final say as to which items make it into the database and which do not. We ask that they be fair to each submitting user and not reject items for trivial omissions. Also, they should only make changes to a user's submitted metadata if absolutely necessary. On the other hand, a reviewing Blenducator should always reject a user submission that doesn't make any sense. So please take contributing to EasyBlend seriously, but also have some fun. Thanks for watching, and see you at EasyBlend.